Hi, good morning to all of you. So today, as part of our YouTube class on Unacademy Unlock platform, we'll be looking at one of the important topics in public administration, that is RICS Comparative Public Administration, Riggisian Models. As all of us know, every year good number of questions are asked from this topic. So let us have some kind of clarity about this topic in our next 1 hour discussion. And as we say all the time in the classes, either this topic is also very important from your general studies point of view also. Almost all the questions in your general studies can be answered from this topic. Before we start our discussions, let us look at the courses offered on an academy platform. Unbox 2021, 6 months free on purchasing a plus subscription of 1 year or above on December 10, 12 a.m. It is only valid for 1 day. So if you buy subscription today, if you buy subscription, if you then you would be getting 6 months free of extra subscription, which is a very good opportunity for you. Then you will have annual price hikes. This is very important. Price hikes on 9th and 16th of December. For 1 year, price hike will be on 9th, around 10,000 rupees, and another price hike will be there on 16th, 3,000 rupees. And then you will be having a mega price hike also. So it is better if you take your subscription as early as possible, because already you can see price hike of 1000 rupees, sorry, on 9th December it will be 1000 rupees, and 16th December it will be 3000 rupees. So it is better if you take the subscription now itself. Next, uh, there will be price hikes for plus GS 1 year. Again, it is 500 rupees, and for on 16th December it will be 2000 rupees price hike. Next, the batches you have UPSC batches that are starting for general studies from 15th of December. Mission 2022 comprehensive batch, Expedition 2022 comprehensive batch on GS. Both of them are starting from 15th of December. Then 2023 also the batches are starting from 15th of December. Mission batch is starting on 10th of December, and this one is on 15th of December. Next, on 8th of December, you can see 6 optional courses are launching. And they have launched six optional courses on 8th of December. You can take admission into all these courses with our code PKS10. You will get additional 10% discount. You have PSIR optional Sanjay Kumar, and then Sociology Ankur Agarwal, Arvind Singh for PSIR, Venkana for Mathematics, Yashwant for Philosophy, Piyush for History, Asha for PSIR, Amit Kumar for Management, Rajneet for History, and Rohit for Geography. These are all the batches that are being started from 8th of December. From 8th of December, all these batches are starting. Have started, in fact. You also have free test series for UPSC. This is a free test series for UPSC. Mrinal's Monday, 20 MCQs, 20 minutes, language Hindi and English. Then T20 daily current affairs test series, 15 MCQs, 15 minutes, language is both Hindi and English. This Mrinal's Monday, it will be on 8 p.m. and then the daily current affairs will be at 7:30 p.m. Abhiyan daily static quiz, 15 MCQs, language both Hindi and English. It is Monday to Friday 10 a.m. The best part of it is that it is a free test series. so you don't have to pay anything. You can enroll yourself now immediately. Then UPSC CSE Combat. This is again a mega offer on the part of Unacademy. You have to answer 56 questions in 60 minutes. The examination date is on 12th December, 11 a.m. You can win prizes scholarships up to 4 crores. 100% scholarship for those who come out in the ranks between 1 and 3. 75% for between 4 and 10, and so on and so forth. So you can also take this UPSC CSE Combat. Those who come out on the top will be given free in a subscription. Level up your UPSC preparation also with the Iconic subscription. As part of Iconic subscription, you have live mentoring, then a study planner, mains question answer practice also. So these are all the courses that are offered on Unacademy platform. So let us come back and look at what we have to discuss now. That is Riggisian models. This is what we are discussing, Riggisian models. So as all of us know, Friedrichs, one of the most important thinkers from public administration discipline, had come out with his what is popularly known as Riggisian models. Had come out with his Riggisian models. Why did he come out with these models? What are these models? And what is the significance of these models? And also what is the criticism of these models is what let us try to briefly discuss over the next 1 hour or so. You can see here, Friedrichs, he is known as the father of CPA. He developed this typology in 1956-57, named as Agraria, Transition and Industrial. Finally, it was fully developed in 1957. So why did Riggs come out with his models of comparative public administration? That is what we have to look at it. As all of us know, since the time public administration had come into existence, when Woodrow Wilson had written that article, the study of administration, it has been the constant effort of all the administrative thinkers to formulate what we call universal theories in public administration. Why? Because they wanted to gain the status of a science for the discipline of public administration. This discipline of public administration can have the status of a science only when it has universal theories and principles. Continuous efforts were made by administrative thinkers from that point of time, since 1887 onwards till now, for the administrative thinkers to come out with what we call these universal theories. Initially, they were successful in the form of classical theories of formation. We have Taylor's scientific management theory. We also have administrative management theory of administrative management theory of Henry Fayol, Max Weber's bureaucratic theory of formation, and finally the classical theory of Gulick and Urwick. What all of them have done is that all these thinkers had come out with their theories and they called their theories universal, and they also called their principles also universal. Since public administration boasted of the universal theories and principles, it was called a science of administration also. 1920s was considered the golden age of the discipline of public administration. But this status of science of administration did not last long. Why? Because this universality of the principles of formation were severely criticized by other thinkers. Human relations thinkers and behavioral thinkers have questioned the universality of the principles. They have questioned the very foundations of the science of administration. The entire concept of the science of administration depended on the universality of the principles of formation given by classical thinkers. What Elton Mayo has proved through his experiments, that these principles of formation are necessary but not sufficient to maximize efficiency. What is needed to maximize efficiency is looking at ordination from a completely different dimension. different perspective. And according to Elton Mayo, this dimension is what we call it as human relations dimension. He said that organizations are not social physical systems, physical structures consisting of only hierarchies. They are social systems consisting of dynamic human beings. And then Elton Moyer's ideas were further developed by other behavioral thinkers like Chester Bernard and Herbert Simon. Bernard has said that organization is a cooperative system of people coming together in a voluntary manner to satisfy their common objectives through coordination. He defined organization as a social system, Chester Bernard. So obviously, these classical theories were facing severe criticism from human relations and behavioral thinkers. The discipline of public administration was facing serious crisis. This was the period of 1940s and 1950s. Simon came out with the solution in the form of his decision-making theory, but unfortunately, again, this decision-making theory was also not able to provide the kind of solution that would satisfy the thinkers, because Simon's decision-making theory at the end of the day was more what we call a descriptive theory. Simon has said that public administration can still be called a science of administration provided it adopts his decision-making model, and he said that decision should be based on on rationality, on the basis of facts, and this rationality can ensure efficiency maximization. And since the concept of rationality is universal in nature, public administration can easily be called a science of administration. But unfortunately, Simon did not come up with what we call pragmatic solutions regarding how to make completely rational decisions. In fact, it has been proved time and again that it is not possible for us to make completely rational decisions, because at the end of the day, his decision making theory was only a descriptive theory. Nobody could provide solutions. And the discipline was facing so many identity crises. Some of the thinkers went back to the original discipline, parent discipline, that is political science, but they did not get any proper welcome there. And then some of them went to management, because most of the theories are management theories. Some of them went to economics, because some of them are related to economics also. But there were thinkers like Fredericks who still believed that public administration can be a science of administration provided it follows its comparative approach. It was Woodrow Wilson who, for the first time, spoke about this comparative approach, and it was Fredericks who had used this comparative approach to come out with what he called a universal theory. Ricks believed that public administration faces a challenge because it was there were only universal theories in public administration, but there is no universal theory of public administration. He believed that he could come out with a universal theory of public administration by adopting a ecological approach and structural functional approach. So proceeding further, let us see what is this Ricks. And this is what Ricks has said. Ricks has said that classical thinkers have failed. These classical thinkers have failed because these classical thinkers were focusing on what happens only within the organization. That is, they adopted what we call non-ecological approach, or what you call a closed systems approach. Max Weber's bureaucratic theory of formation strongly is based on the assumption that the functioning of bureaucracy is not influenced by external factors. But in reality, these kind of assumptions do not do justice to those theories. Why? Because these assumptions are mostly what we call untrue in reality. They are not true in reality, because the functioning of bureaucracy is always impacted by external factors. The political system will influence the functioning of bureaucracy. So is the case with the economic system. And of course, the social and cultural conditions in the country mostly influences the functioning of bureaucracy. So that is the reason why classical theories could not come out with a universal theory. Another reason why the classical thinkers could not come out with a universal theory was classical thinkers adopted what we call this inductive approach to theory formulation. What is this inductive approach that we are talking about? This inductive approach is mostly followed in physical and natural sciences. Physical and natural sciences. What happens here in this inductive approach? In these physical and natural sciences, in this inductive approach, experiments are conducted on a small sample and the results are extrapolated to the rest of the population. That is what classical thinkers have done. For example, take the case of a vaccine for corona. What did the vaccine companies do? They conducted experiments on a very insignificant sample. Some of the vaccine companies never really bothered to conduct experiment also. They conducted experiments directly on the people only. They conducted experiments on a small sample size and extrapolated to the rest of the population, saying that these vaccines will work. Efficacy of vaccines. Now, this kind of what we call inductive approach to theory formulation can be useful in physical and natural sciences. It is useful in physical and natural sciences, wherein you don't have to conduct experiments on a larger scale because the physiological aspects of human beings are the same. But the problem comes up. But the problem comes up when you are extending the same to the social sciences. Social sciences deal with the psychological and the sociological aspects of human behavior, and they are different for everyone. How a person behaves in America to a particular situation is radically different from another person reacting in India. All these factors will influence the human behavior. And public administration is a social science. It deals with the dynamics of human behavior. Classical thinkers have excluded these dynamics of human behavior also, because of which their theories were proved to be complete failure. For example, Weberian bureaucracy might be successful in a developed country because the conditions are different. In developed countries, the objective of bureaucracy is to ensure stability and continuity. They have to implement rules and regulations because development had already taken place in those countries thanks to industrial revolution. So when the same Weberian bureaucracy was implemented, applied to developing nations, it was a failure. That is the reason why Riggs had said that he would adopt an ecological approach. He could see three important trends within the discipline of public administration. That is what Riggs has said. What are the three trends that he was talking about? From non-ecological to ecological, from ideographic to nomothetic, from normative to empirical. Non-ecological, that is closed systems, to ecological, that is open systems approach. From ideographic to nomothetic, that is, Riggs has said that classical theories have failed because they were only focusing on one specific culture, one specific country, one specific administrative system. That is, they were focusing on a Western industrialized developed countries, and they have extended their experiments of Western industrialized developed countries to the rest of the population. We call them universal. Obviously, when they were implemented in the developing countries, which are having radically different conditions, they were a failure. That is the reason why. That is the reason why Riggs has said that his research through comparative public administration would be moving from ideographic to nomothetic. That is, from the study of a specific country, specific system, specific culture to universal studies. Then from normative to empirical. Classical theories are normative theories. That is, they prescribed solutions without looking at the ground level conditions. They prescribe solutions, one best way of performing the task, without looking at the ground level conditions. Those solutions are mostly idealistic, normative in nature, which do not reflect the ground level realities again. For example, when you look at it, Max Weber's bureaucratic theory of formation, as you can see in the Max Weber's bureaucratic theory of formation, Max Weber had come out with idealistic solutions wherein he wanted bureaucrats to be completely value neutral because he believed that they are instruments. But in reality, this is not the case. In reality, this is not the case. That is the reason why those theories are a failure. So that is the reason why Riggs has said that he could see a definite shift in the trend of the discipline of public administration in terms of its research from non-ecological to ecological, from idiographic to monothetic, from idiographic to nomothetic, and from normative to empirical. Then Riggs had come out with his comparative public administration based on three important assumptions, as you can see here on the screen: ecological approach, structural functional approach, and ideal models. What is this? Ecological approach. Administration is one subsystem of a society and so is influenced by other subsystems, political, social, cultural, and economic subsystems. That is what we said. Ecological means open systems approach. According to Riggs, the entire country can be defined as a suprasystem, whereas all other subsystems are a part of this suprasystem: political subsystem, economic subsystem, social and cultural subsystem, and administrative subsystem, along with this communication subsystem. And as part of ecological approach, all these subsystems would interact among themselves. As part of this ecological approach, all these subsystems will interact among themselves. They would influence other subsystems and get also influenced by other subsystems. So at the end of the day, the functioning of a society, the functioning of a country, the functioning of a system is influenced by the dynamics of interrelationship between these subsystems. That is what Riggs has said, ecological approach. As we have just mentioned now, classical theories have failed because they were based on non-ecological approach. They were based on this non-ecological approach. They have failed because they were based on non-ecological approach or closed systems approach. Then Riggs also has said that he will come out with he would follow what is called structural functional approach also. What is the structural functional approach? This structural functional approach is given by Talcott Parsons, a sociological thinker. And what did he say about this structural functional approach? He said that as part of the structural functional approach, Talcott Parsons, he said that the functioning of a society can be explained with the help of the structures it has and also the functions to be performed by those structures. What does he mean? For example, take the case of India. Whether India is having a developed system or not, we can understand on the basis of the structures and the functioning of those structures. For example, what are the structures we have? Legislature, executive, judiciary, police, civil services, family, religion, marriage. These are all the structures and the institutions that we have. All of them are expected to perform specific functions. Take the case of legislature. Legislature is expected to make laws, rules, and regulations for the entire country. If you want to know whether your country is efficient or not, if you want to know whether your country is efficient or not, just see the functioning of legislature, whether the legislature is able to perform its functions or not. Please remember, in the beginning itself, I said that Riggs comparative public administration is very, very important for our general studies papers. If I have to define entire general studies papers in one single line, it is nothing but a Riggisian models. That's the reason why I always make sure that we always give examples from general studies also, so that you can use them in your GS answers also. Take the case of legislature, as I have mentioned. Our legislature, does it function efficiently? Obviously not. Our legislature has become nothing but an extension of the executive, because of which parliamentary democracy in India is mostly there only on paper but not in reality, because the executive does not want any discussion and debate on the floor of the house. Executive does not want any kind of non-partisan approach to passing of bills on the floor of the house. Most of the bills are not discussed or debated before they are voted upon. Since 2019 till now, when the present government had got a majority in the Rajya Sabha also, not even a single bill was referred to a select committee of parliament. And discussions and debates were as rare as we find a corona-free region in the world. This is where the problem is. That is what structural functional approach can help us. And similarly, look at the case of our private sector or markets. In case of our private sector or markets, what you will find is only what is called crony capitalism, wherein most of these big industrialists, they are very close to the political executive. They use that proximity to the political executive to their advantage, to their benefit. And they earn huge amounts of money through the process, because even after 75 years of independence, we have a situation in our country wherein the resources are absolutely under the monopoly of they're absolutely under the monopoly of the state, and the state uses all these resources for its own benefit. The state uses all these resources to benefit those people who are close to the state, what we call crony capitalism. And that is where again this structural functional approach of RIGS become very important for us to of a Talcott process becomes very important for us to understand. So you see any of the structures in our society and whether they are performing their functions or not, then you will know whether it is efficient or not. Then the next thing is ideal models. So Rix has tried to explain his comparative public administration with the help of ideal models. As you can see, as the name itself indicates, they were ideal, means they would not be found in reality. He had initially came out with this agraria and industria. Later, he had come out with the fused prismatic and differentiated societies. So proceeding further, what is agraria, what is industria, and what are all these things? Let us try to look at all of them. Right? According to Rix, right? According to Rix, agraria is basically underdeveloped society. So at the end of the day, the objective of Rix is to come out with a universal theory of public administration. As I keep on saying, there are so many universal theories in public administration, like classical theory of Max Weber, or Taylor's scientific management theory, or Henry Fayol's administrative management theory. But there is no universal theory of public administration. What does it mean? There is no universal theory of administration which can be applied, which can be implemented in all the countries around the world, irrespective of the conditions prevailing in those countries. So if you have to come up with a universal theory of public administration, what is required is you must be able to understand the world. You must be able to understand the different societies in the world, so that you can come out with a theory that is applicable to all the societies. So for the purpose of theory formulation, what Rix has done is that initially he has divided the countries around the world. Please remember, this was in 1950s. So almost 70 years back. He has divided the countries around the world into three categories: agraria and industria. Later he added transitia also. For agraria, he gave the example of ancient China or Thailand. So what are the features of this agraria? As you can see it on the screen: descriptive values, functionally diffuse pattern, limited spatial mobility, traditional patterns and norms. What do we mean by that? Agrarian societies are those societies where agriculture is the most important and dominant activity performed by the people in the society. Descriptive values, that means those values which are imposed from above. If you go back to India also, even now also, you can see in some of the villages, you can see that these descriptive values are dominating. What do we mean by that? If you come to India also, you can see these ka panchayats giving their verdicts, which have to be followed by the people, the followers. The values which are imposed from above, what we call as descriptive values. Followers will have to follow them. That is what we say traditional authority of Max Weber also. The traditional authority of Max Weber can be similar to the descriptive values of agraria or a few society of Fredericks. wherein people cannot dare violate those values. For example, take the case of Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi, he wanted to go to London for his further studies. His mother had strongly opposed, saying that you cannot go to London. Why? Because according to Hindu traditions and customs, if any forward caste person goes overseas, travels overseas, he would lose his caste. Mahatma Gandhi belonged to forward caste. He belonged to what we call in a Mahatma Gandhi belonged to this Vaishya family. So, so his mother has said that no, you cannot go to London because if you go there, you will be treated as outcast by the family. Why? Because in those days, what you can see is that in those days, uh, if you're traveling to foreign countries, it means that in those foreign countries you have to eat they eat non-vegetarian food or they drink liquor, which has been prohibited for forward caste according to Hindu traditions and customs. So Mahatma Gandhi had to make a promise to his mother that he will not consume any non-vegetarian food, nor would he be drinking liquor. On the basis of this condition only, Mahatma Gandhi was sent to London by his mother. This is what we call ascriptive values. Ascriptive values. And, uh, and this is what Rix has said, functionally diffuse pattern. Another thing, as you can see in those rural areas or even now also in our society, is this functionally diffuse pattern. That is a single person performing all the tasks, a single structure performing all the tasks. Rix has explained with the help of what is called structural functional approach. Here, a single structure performs all the tasks. Go to rural areas, you have only one doctor. This doctor is there for any kind of problems that we face, health problems. Similarly, the tribal head. This tribal head will be formulating the norms. He is responsible for implementation. He also gives judgments. That is what we say in a diffuse pattern. Limited spatial mobility. Here, when we talk about limited spatial mobility, what we are saying here is in the agrarian societies, since there were no better transportation and communication facilities, there was a limited spatial mobility. That means they could not move out of their houses. Only with industrial revolution, people started moving out of villages. Otherwise, people used to mostly stay in villages for the rest of their life also. And limited social mobility also. Take the case of India, the caste system. It is not possible for a lower caste person to move up in the ladder of hierarchy to higher caste. This trip because of the traditional norms and patterns. This is what he called it as an agrarian society. And then on the other side of the spectrum, according to Rix, what we have is industria, or what we call it as industrial society. He gave the example of United States of America for industria. What are the features of this industria? You can see here achievement norms, high degree of occupational differentiation, greater spatial mobility, and modern society. So what you can see is that in industria, nobody is bothered about your caste or religion or gender or nationality or ethnicity or race, as long as you have the talent. You can see very recently, Twitter has appointed an Indian as CEO. So is the case with Microsoft or Google. So what is common to all of them? What is common to all of them? All these multinational companies in industrial societies have do not look for the nationality or the gender or race or anything. What really matters is achievement norms. On the other hand, can you imagine any of the multinational companies in India headed by foreigners? Can never imagine. That is where the problem is. And then another important feature of this industry is a differential, high levels of differentiation. For example, now take India only. High levels of differentiation. Earlier there used to be only one MBA. Now you have MBA labor relations, MBA marketing, MBA finance, MBA Human Relations. You name it, so many of them are there. This is what we say high levels of differentiation. Earlier we had only one doctor for every problem. Now almost each and every part of your body, one doctor is there. That is what we say. Greater spatial mobility. Now people can move. You know, before Corona, people could move anywhere else and anywhere else in the world. If you have American passport, you can go to any country in the world. If you have this Singapore passport, you can go to any country in the world. You don't require any visa also. Your passport itself is more than sufficient for you. So that is what we can see that in industrial societies. They are completely opposite of these agrarian societies. Then, according to Riggs, between agraria and industria, there is another society called transitia. This, as the name itself indicates, this transitia is what we call transitional society, a society which is in the process of transformation from agraria to industria. If we equate agraria to underdeveloped societies, underdeveloped countries, industria to developed countries, transitia is what we call developing countries. Since it is a society in the process of transformation, it has elements of both agraria and industria. That means it has the features of both agraria and industria. It is neither an underdeveloped society nor a developed one. India. And this is what we say. Riggs had come out with these three models, agraria and industria and transition. But he was not satisfied with the models because there were so many drawbacks in these models. Now, transition society. Riggs has said that these transition societies have the features of both agraria and industrial, but he did not explain properly what are those features. And he did not come out with any mechanism to study those societies, these transitional societies. Even industrial societies have agriculture, right? And this kind of division assumes that there is only one directional movement from agraria to transition, from transition to industrial. And this kind of division stresses on environment of administrative system, not on administrative system. They talk so many things about outside administrative systems, but not administrative systems. And of course, it is too general and too abstract also. So Riggs was not satisfied with the division of societies into agraria, industria, and transition. He felt that he was not able to properly explain the societies. That is when Riggs happened to visit India. His visit to India literally opened his eyes to the kind of diversity he could never imagine even in his wildest of dreams. After visiting India, then he had completely changed, transformed his models. He had left this agraria, industry, and transition. In their place, he had come out with what he called it as fused prismatic and diffracted models. His visit to India has completely changed the outlook of Riggs. He was amazed by the diversity that India has. It is said that if you travel in India, after every if you travel in India, after every 20 kilometers, either the language changes or the dialect changes. That is what you can see. Either the language changes or the dialect changes. India is home to all the religions, all topmost religions in the world. You have so much of diversity in the name of religion, race, caste, gender, language, region, ethnicity, so on and so forth. That is the reason why Riggs had come out with a new model called this is about agrarian industry. A new model called fused prismatic and diffracted societies. He had basically used physical sciences to explain this fused prismatic and diffracted societies. As we know, when white light passes through a prism, when white light passes through a prism, what we get is diffraction of light. scattering of light. In the same manner, Riggs has said that at the beginning of the prism there is a fuse through which the light passes. And there, that is why white light is pure white light, simple white light. He called it as fuse societies. And what really comes out is this diffraction of light. He called them as diffracted societies. In between, the transformation takes place. What we call it as prismatic societies, wherein the transformation takes place. So his basic objective was to explain the functioning of those prismatic societies. As you can see here on the screen, agriculture folk societies are fused societies, industrial societies are diffracted, and intermediate societies are the fused societies. And so what Rick's objective was here to explain the functioning of what we call prismatic societies. And Ricks has explained the functioning of prismatic societies with the help of what we said earlier, uh, ecological approach and structural functional approach. Ricks has explained the functioning of prismatic societies with the help of ecological approach and structural functional approach. As part of ecological approach, Ricks has divided the societies as part of ecological approach. Ricks has divided the prismatic society into various subsystems. What are the subsystems that we are talking about here? We are talking about political subsystem, economic subsystem, administrative subsystem, social and cultural subsystems. Ricks has said that this prismatic society can be divided into these subsystems. And he said that we can understand a prismatic society better when we know the functioning of all these subsystems. And he has also explained that it can be this structural functional approach can be used to differentiate between fused prismatic and diffracted societies also. So proceeding further, let us look at what are these subsystems and how do those subsystems function. As we have mentioned, the political subsystem is the most important subsystem of a prismatic society. The political subsystem is the most important subsystem of a prismatic society. And what are we talking about here? As you can see it on the screen here, according to Ricks, this political subsystem is characterized by three important features. First one is heterogeneity. Second one is formalism. Third one is overlapping. So let us see what are they. Heterogeneity. It means a society is divided into haves and have-nots. The bureaucracy would protect the interests of haves and ignore the have-nots leading to. As I have mentioned, Ricks was amazed by the kind of diversity that he has seen in India. What we call it as heterogeneity. Prismatic societies are characterized by this heterogeneity. India has so many castes, so many religions, so many languages, so many regions, so many ethnicities and races, and so many genders, so many faiths. So what happens is that, according to Ricks, in prismatic society, this political subsystem, thanks to this heterogeneity, it becomes difficult to govern a country also. Why? Because with so many people, so many sections, so many sects competing for resources, it is almost impossible for the government to satisfy the demands of all these sections of society. All these diversified sections have competing and more often than not conflicting interests. So how to satisfy all of them? How to make sure that development becomes what we call a uniform activity? That is where it becomes very, very difficult. That is the reason why he said that in prismatic societies, bringing about changes is also very, very difficult. Why bringing about changes is also very, very difficult in a prismatic society, according to Ricks? Why? Because whenever the changes have to be brought about in these prismatic societies, it is always opposed by the vested interests. Take the case of India. If the government wants to empower weaker sections of society, immediately the rich sections of society will be strongly opposing those changes. If the government, the forward sections will be opposing the changes. For example, if the government wants to empower backward caste people, there will be a lot of resistance from forward caste people. Similarly, if the government wants to empower poor people, there will again be resistance from rich people. That is where the problem. If the government wants to empower women, there will be a lot of resistance from men. The best example is this women reservation bill. It has been lying, with the parliament for so much period of time. Even recently, also in the recent beginning of this present session of our parliament, winter session of parliament, opposition members have demanded with the government that government should introduce this bill. The government should introduce women reservation bill, but the government does not want to antagonize other powerful sections of society. Why? Because this women reservation bill is strongly opposed by, it is strongly opposed by, uh, male sections of society, especially politicians from UP and Bihar. And the present government has maximum number of seats only from UP and Bihar, and they cannot afford to antagonize their voters. That is the reason why it is never implemented also. Right? This is what we say. And that is the reason why bringing about changes in a prismatic society is is almost impossible because of the resistance that they face. Second one is formalism. Formalism is the difference between what is stated and what is practiced. For example, formalism is the difference between what is ideal and what is real, what is value and what is fact, what it should be and what it is. And you can see that in a prismatic society, this formalism is there everywhere. Formalism is there in the functioning of bureaucracy, political executive, the society, family, people, culture, everywhere you find only formalism. What we say is different from what we do. In public, we say that we should not practice untouchability. We should not practice caste discrimination. But in reality, that is what people do. You can see this matrimonial ads in newspapers. They clearly say that only people belonging to their caste should apply. That is what you find, and it is quite normal also. Or belonging to their region, or to their religion, or to their language, or to their ethnicity. That is what we say formalism, that we find in prismatic society. What the constitution says is different from what the political parties do in reality. Every political party say that they are committed to the ideals of socialism. In practice, they only practice, in reality, they only practice crony capitalism. Every political party says that they are only working for poor people. In reality, they only work for rich people. Take the present government also. They say that their objective is inclusive growth. But where is this inclusive growth? During this corona period, the incomes of Ambani and Adani have gone up. As you must have seen, we have put all these things in our a newspaper articles also. This Thomas Piketty Global Equity Index, which clearly has shown that India is a country which has so much of inequality. Not only we have so much of inequality, unfortunately, there is so much of growing inequalities in our society, especially during the last 18 months of Corona crisis, almost 2 years of Corona crisis. Rich people are becoming richer and poor people poorer. But still, you find that every day the government only says one thing, that is, they wanted to empower poor people. That is what we say formalism. Then overlapping. That is what we say in prismatic society. You find this overlapping, a single structure performing multiple functions, a overlapping of functions, and a single function is being performed by multiple structures. For example, take the case of law and order function in India. This law and order function is performed by multiple structures. We are talking about the central government, the state government, central police agencies, then the state police, intelligence bureau, RA, state intelligence agencies, CID, CBI. So, and then we have this NIA, So a single function is performed by multiple structures which results in overlapping. In the same manner, a single structure also performs multiple functions. For example, take the case of a district collector in India. What is the reason why this district collector is inefficient? Why? Because district collector performs all the functions at the district level. He is responsible for everything that happens in the district level. He is responsible for maintenance of land records. He is responsible for law and order functions. He is responsible for developmental functions. He is responsible for coordinating functions. He is also responsible for conduct of elections, conduct of census. He is also responsible for disaster management functions and also protocol functions. What happens? Overlapping of functions. Similarly, you have a prismatic society. In a prismatic society, you have what we call overlapping of old systems along with the new structures. Parliament is new, but the members of parliament are elected only on the basis of what we call traditional loyalties, like family, caste, so on and so forth. Then Rix has said that right. Proceeding further, what are the features of what we call prismatic Sala model? The administrative subsystem of a prismatic society is what Riggs called it as a prismatic Sala model. What is this Sala? SALA. As we have mentioned, Riggs visited Thailand, and Sala is the name of a bureau in Thailand. Bureaucracy. In Thailand, it is called Salacracy. Riggs call it as Salacracy. Right? And what are the features of this salacracy or bureaucracy in a prismatic society according to Riggs? There is nepotism. We have in the prismatic society there is so much of nepotism in recruitment, and there is a polynormativism, polycommunalism. These are all the things. What are the other features here we are talking about here? What we say here is that according to Riggs, the prismatic Sala model, you have what is called unbalanced polity, wherein it is the political executive that dominates the functioning of bureaucracy. We have prebendary offices, wherein the officials working in the government have two sources of income. One, they are given salaries by the government. Two, they also get money from the people, what we call it as bribes for the works they do to the people. And then there is no rule of law. They will be differentiating between the people on the basis of their religion, caste, so on and so forth. There is formalism in their functioning, and there will be high levels of corruption. That is what Riggs has said. When it comes to the social system, Riggs has said that it is characterized by polynormativism. What is polynormativism? Existence of what he called it as multiple values. According to Riggs, this prismatic society has what we see is multiple value systems, norms. On the one hand, our constitution talks about rule of law, equality before law, equal opportunities, right to equality, right against exploitation, right against discrimination, so on and so forth. But in reality, that is what we see in our society. People are differentiated, discriminated on the basis of their religion, caste, region, language, gender, so on and so forth. On the one hand, the government says that we should move towards a casteless society. On the other hand, it is the government that differentiates between the people in the name of caste. Then we have polycommunalism. Multiple communities will be staying together in a prismatic society, which are hostile to each other. You can see the case of India. We have different religions having different norms, cultures, which results in conflicts all the time. Polynormativism and polycommunalism. Recently, you must have seen in Gujarat, Ahmedabad, the city council has banned non-vegetarian food on the streets. The High Court had to ask the city council, why did you ban this food? Who gave you the right to ban the food? Ban non-vegetarian food. Why? Because existence of multiple norms. So Gujarat is considered a vegetarian state. That is the reason why they have banned it. But can you ban those things? That is where we talk about these things. And this is what we say. Whereas economic subsystem, according to Ricks, is characterized by bazaar canteen model, wherein you have on the one hand a very well developed markets, on the other hand a barter economy also. For example, take the case of India. Take the case of a farming community. Farmers have access to institutional banking in the form of these commercial banks, in the form of regional rural banks, in the form of cooperative credit societies, and everyone, wherein they get loans at a discounted rate of interest. On the other hand, you also have an informal economy in the form of money lenders in villages, wherein these money lenders would charge huge amounts of money for the loans they give to the farmers. This is what we see in prismatic societies, bazaar canteen, economic subsystem. Market factors are developed without increasing in capital, so businessmen try to increase their influence on politics and administration for personal ends. Black marketing, adulteration, hoarding, inflation, you can see exploitation, poverty, social injustice are the main features. And another you can see important in a feature, as you can see here, is authority and control. Authority is centralized but control is localized, so dominance of administrators can be seen. For example, during the lockdown, the entire authority was centralized in the hands of the PMO, but the control is in the hands of the district collectors. That is what we can see here in a prismatic society. The district collectors were given extensive powers to control the people during the lockdown. Police were given. Authority is centralized, control is localized. So, proceeding further, how can the changes take place in a prismatic society? In a prismatic society, as we have discussed, changes are very difficult. Why? Because there is so much of resistance to those changes because of the vested interest. On the other hand, in Western societies, change is very easy because this people can change their behavior according to the changing circumstances, and the changes can be exogenous, outside, endogenous, and you know within the what we call internal factors. According to Ricks, changes, if they are because of internal factors, then the change can be easily sustained. On the other hand, if the changes are imposed from above, from outside, they can be difficult to implement, especially in a prismatic society because of it. As you can see, the last sentence here: heterogeneity, formalism, and overlapping. That is where the problem is. For example, take the case of liberalization, privatization, globalization. When India adopted these things, it was due to external events that had taken place, and that is the reason why there is so much of liberalization, so much of resistance to this liberalization, privatization, globalization in India. Next, this is broadly what we call prismatic society and Riggisian models. And these Riggisian models are criticized by various thinkers. You can see the criticism here. First one is difficulty in language and terms borrowed from sciences. What Riggs has done is that he felt that he could make a scientific theory by borrowing terms from science, physics, chemistry, and natural sciences. And the language used by Riggs to describe all the concept is also very, very complicated. That is what the critics have said. And then Riggisian models are equilibrium models. This is where the problem. Riggs has said that his fused, prismatic, and diffracted are equilibrium models. So there is no scope for any change in equilibrium model. That is where the problem is with Riggs. Riggs has said that change can be brought about through exogenous and endogenous factors, but he did not explain what those factors are, how those factors can be included in the model. And then how to differentiate between prismatic and diffractive societies, again Riggs did not come out with. There is no quantitative differences in a quantitative differentiation between what we call prismatic and diffractive societies. The differences are mostly qualitative in nature. And another criticism is that Riggs was only focusing on negative characteristics of prismatic society. He could never see the positive aspects of prismatic society. For example, when he spoke about formalism, was totally negative in his approach. Formalism is needed. You need to differentiate between the people. You cannot have equality all the time. You have to differentiate between the people on the basis of their religion, on the basis of their poverty, on the basis of their economic conditions. The government should always be in favor of weaker sections of society. This is what Riggs has completely ignored. This is another criticism against Riggs, as you can see it on the screen again. And these societies are characterized into fused, prismatic, and diffracted society on the basis of the capitalist values. So there is no ethnocentricity to Riggs here. He did not take into consideration he did not take into consideration the conditions prevailing in the countries around the world. He had divided them only on the basis of his understanding of America. He defined a diffracted society on the basis of his understanding of America. And this is where the problem with Riggs. Riggs, at the end of the day, Riggs prismatic model is facing these problems in the form of looking at the things only from the perspective of America. In spite of the fact that he wanted to come out of American influence, he was critical of the classical thinkers for not going beyond their understanding of America. He committed the same mistake. He criticized classical thinkers for their ethnocentricity. He also committed the same mistake. He defined development as the process of transformation of a society from fused to prismatic and prismatic to diffracted. At the end of the day, he gave the example of a diffracted America as a diffracted society. It means that every country must move towards America. This is where Riggisian comparative public administration was also severely criticized. So this is about Rigg's comparative public administration. We have tried to put the entire comparative public administration of Riggs into 1 hour. Basically, this is a synopsis, but I think we have covered extensively all the important points of Riggsian comparative public administration. I'm sure this can help you, especially for quick revision for this year main examination also. Similarly, from Monday onwards, we will come out with more topics on various aspects of general studies and public administration as part of our YouTube classes. Keep on watching those classes. That will be very helpful for you for the coming main examination. Till then, take care of yourself. Best of luck.